So I think we're live because I see a thing that says we're streaming live on YouTube. So I'm just
we're live.
We're live. Awesome. So welcome, world and everybody, to the Node.js Foundation Technical Steering Committee meeting for March 14th, 2018. Hopefully somebody who's not me will post a link to this stream in IRC and on Twitter. Today we're going to start off, as we always do, with announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? I have one, but does anybody else have an announcement? Okay, my announcement is this. People of planet Earth, the plan right now is for there to be a runtime deprecation in buffer constructor in node 10.0. So you should check your code for usages of buffer constructor. And we're going to talk more about that later, but I thought that was worth highlighting and probably worth highlighting at subsequent meetings until node 10 is released. Let's see here. Right, and the very first issue is in fact that issue, the runtime deprecation for buffer constructor. This is in the main node repo, issue 19079. It is a tracking issue of things we need to do before actually making this a reality, or in the process of making this a reality. And I put it on the agenda, I think, and I did that likely because the very first item seems to have stalled, which maybe I should take it on, but it's to draft a concise statement as to why we're doing this. Why the current situation where we're zero filling the buffer constructor and a documentation deprecation for it is insufficient. We're likely to get lots of comments about this, and we should have a unified, coherent, prepared explanation. So yeah, does anybody have anything they want to say about this right now? Can somebody say something so I know that I'm not the only one on this meeting?
Hi, Rich.
Hey. All right.
Also, one thing that's worth mentioning, we have 12 people in the meeting right now, which means that we do have quorum.
Right, we can make consensus decisions. That's correct. Let me make sure the minutes reflect all 12 attendees while I wait for somebody else to have something to say.
So for those at home who are just tuning in, while Rich is filling this out, it's just a reminder, the first thing that we've started is Node.js/node issue 19079, which is a tracking issue for the runtime deprecation of the buffer constructor.
So the concise statement, I suggested at one point, let me see, that somebody could talk to Nikita and is it Vladimir? I don't know what his last name is, but Seichon on Twitter, on GitHub. And Anna and Evan, perhaps, just to sort of like get a rounded idea of what the reasoning is, and an agreement that we've expressed it clearly and coherently. So maybe I'll take on that action item because this is stalling and it was my idea in the first place. So it's either I give it up or I do it. And then there's, yeah, and then subsequently they'll be landing the actual runtime deprecation, which I think stalled now around what the exact message should be. So feel free to dive into that issue and try to get that moving. No comments on there in the last 7 days, and we really, in my opinion, want that to land on master sooner rather than later, and getting nightlies and getting the RCs and all that sort of thing, so that if this does, cause hardship for someone either we find out soon enough that we back out, or they find out soon enough that they have time to fix it. I guess that's probably all to say right now. Oh, there is the upgrade guide. I don't know if Targos or anyone else has anything to say about that. I assume it's not yet started, and that's another thing that probably we need to figure out.
I think I'm working on the upgrade guide, but it's not ready yet.
Oh, super. Thank you. And okay, so, and I see Trevor just showed up, so I'll add him to the minutes. Cool. All right. So I'm just going to put in the minutes that Rich will take on concise statements. And Nikita is writing an upgrade guide. Okay, cool. Anything else about this before we move on to the next subject? Okay, great. The next thing is a collaborator nomination. This is issue number 19067. Trivik R, I guess, is probably how the handle is pronounced, something like that.
Why is this on the agenda? Like, there's no.
This is on the agenda because doing so was put into the onboarding process that was approved, that was landed a few weeks ago. It can be modified if we think that this is unnecessary. But as of right now, it's our documented process. So I don't think this is actually really for discussion. I think this is just for information. So there it is. And congratulations to Trivik R. If there are no objections to that, we're going to move on to tracking issue for updating TSC on board meetings. Myles, is there anything to talk about here?
We had a board meeting last week. There was nothing too eventful, to be honest. I've been on vacation, so I haven't had time to prepare a follow-up from it. I will get that to you all by the next meeting, and I can give you an update. But the short version is there was nothing too eventful at the recent board meeting. Is anyone still there?
Whoops. Hey, did nobody hear anything I just said for the last couple minutes because I was muted?
We did not.
No.
Cool. I just wrote no significant updates this week. Does anyone have any questions for Myles on this, on board stuff? All right. Let's see. Okay, so let's see here. Strategic initiatives is the next thing. Moderation team is not a strategic initiative anymore, but I did it's just part of the project, but I did forget to leave an update in the issue, so I'll do that soon, but the update is no significant moderation activity this week. We didn't log anything. Okay, strategic initiatives. Does anybody have any that they want to update us on? Or should I do the dreaded go down the list of strategic initiatives and call people out?
I think going through the list would be great, and then we can just say whether or not those initiatives have updates.
Okay, there's HTTP2. That's James. He's not here. If anybody else has an update on it, speak up. Next would be modules. That would be Myles.
Hi, I'm Myles. We have our next team meeting coming up at 3 o'clock. That will 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That will also be live on the YouTube. This week's meeting, we are going to be focusing on a lot of time on going through user stories and usability discussion. So what we're trying to do is from a very high level discuss like what is the needed developer experience and expectations of the implementation, and hopefully from that we can derive a subset of what we need to implement. One of the things that will be on the discussion this week that's important for the TSC to be aware of is whether or not the module working group wants to make a request to Node.js Core to stop landing certain things against the module implementation. We do not yet have consensus on it. I think we do have consensus within the working group that any Semver patch stuff can land, but there may be a request from the team to not land large features or Semver minors. I've been framing it as like any new mechanisms that are outside of the standard. The hope is that we don't want to introduce new mechanisms into Node that may get reverted after changes from the working group. As I said, we don't have consensus around this. This is also with the group not being chartered, kind of, outside of the scope of what the working group can do. But as many people from the working group are on the technical steering committee and are collaborators in the project, I think that it's reasonable that if this team were to like kind of coalesce on a on kind of like a request from Core about how we manage modules, I think it would be fairly reasonable. So the hope is that for the next technical steering committee meeting, I will have a recommendation from that team, which is something that we can follow up on. Within Core, we've been landing small fixes against modules, and I think one of the individuals, DevSnack from our collaborator team, has recently become unblocked on named exports from Core modules, which was pretty exciting. That is everything for today, and hopefully I'll have more of an update for you next week.
Cool. It looks like next up is NAPI. And Franzi, did you want to do that update, or should I just read what you typed?
I can do a quick update. So Michael Dawson opened a pull request to move NAPI out of experimental, and there were no objections during the waiting time. We're just finishing up the CI, and then this is probably good to land.
That's fantastic. Cool. OpenSSL, Rod's not here, but does anybody have anything to say about that? If not, we're going to move on to Anna and workers.
Still nothing new so far, and it's going to be a while.
Okay, I'm typing this, but now to say it, anyone want to do error messages in James's absence or core promise APIs in James's absence?
I'm going to do the error messages. I think I went through all the errors in FS. I think most of them are handled or like taken care of. Some of them have already like have existing code parties that we cannot easily migrate it. So I think we're just probably going to leave it at that for V10. I'm going to take a look at crypto where James left off, and probably also introduce some the same mechanism in JavaScript to the C++ land, because I think there are some errors that just can't be migrated into JavaScript land. So, yeah.
Awesome. One thing I just typed into the chat, but I'm not taking minutes on the initiatives. If people want to type the important things I say directly into the doc, that would help me out a lot. If not, I'll try to go back later and summarize, or maybe somebody else can. Next strategic initiative, there's core promise APIs. James is not here. I don't know if anybody else has been working on that or paying extra special attention to it. But if not, then next is Myles again with TSC governance.
Hey all, so no work has really moved forward on the TSC governance stuff for now. As I think we mentioned in a prior meeting, Michael Dawson and I have been talking a little bit about what are ways that we could improve autonomy of working groups. I think that this would be a really great thing for us to have an unconference discussion about at the Collaborator Summit very soon. But if anyone on the TSC has particular thoughts or has the energy to focus on this right now, if you would like to take over being the champion of this, I am more than happy to hand it off. That being said, I'm very happy to help drive it. Just want to, share the responsibility. But if people have ideas that they want to workshop a little bit before the Collaborator Summit so that we can maybe have a little bit more of a focused discussion, please reach out to me and I'll help organize something so we can get that off the ground. If no one reaches out, I'll probably just take the initiative to at least have one meeting before the Collaborator Summit. So as I said, we can be a little bit more focused when we're all in person.
Jeremiah, do you want to talk about new Streams APIs?
Sure. I've made some progress in prototyping C++ and JS connections and sort of a C++ interface to complement the current JavaScript one that I've been prototyping. I hope to make a little bit more progress on that soon and then get some more broad discussion on it.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Trevor, async hooks.
Nothing to report.
Actually, I have some stuff around async hooks. So Node 10 is going to have some changes that probably people should be aware of. For one, NaN now has support for context propagation. So, and there have been some deprecations in NaN to basically migrate the ecosystem to properly propagate async context. So this should make async hooks work better across native modules as well. As a result, there were some legacy versions of make callback that are going to be deprecated in Node 10. So native module authors probably need to be aware that this is happening. But all the tools to properly propagate context are now available both in NAPI and in NaN. So if any native module author run into issues, I'd be happy to help. My name is Ali of Robots. So yeah.
Ali, what was the name of the thing that's being deprecated? I'm sorry.
Legacy versions of make callback.
Legacy versions of make callback. Okay. And if any native module authors would like assistance with handling these changes, they should contact you.
Yeah, and I've already started working on a few modules. Like I've opened pull requests against 3 modules already. That basically updates them to propagate context the right way. Those are FSMNs, the other one. Actually, I forget what the other 2 are. Oh, I know chats, but I haven't opened the pull request. But if anybody wants to reach out, I'd be happy to help.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for jumping in on that. And V8 currency. This would be Michael.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. So our master branch is now on V8 6.5 since last week. It doesn't bring, I don't think it brings any new feature. It's just a bunch of performance improvements, especially on array prototype methods. It also brings a new thing that is on by default, and it's the untrusted code mitigations that were added because of the Spectre and I don't know the other vulnerability. So I have a pull request open now against Node to disable those mitigations by default in the build. So if you have concerns about it, please make a comment on the pull request. So far, I think it only has +1s. So here's the link. I also now I'm working on the update to V8 6.6, which will probably be the version that we will ship in Node 10. I don't think there will be a problem for this update, but we will probably have to discuss if we want to do like last year and maybe make a forward compatibility patch for a later version. So like, for example, 6.7 or 6.8. So it's possible to easily update to a later version during Node 10. But I will probably open an issue for that. That's it.
Great, thank you. Let's see here. So there are a couple of initiatives that are proposed or ongoing that do not have champions. I note that one of them is mentoring, and I think that the mentoring is, I don't know if that's a community committee initiative or if that's a TSC initiative, but if we, or both, but if we have a champion for that, great. Open a pull request to add yourself to the strategic-initiatives.md file in the TSC repo. And there's also, sorry?
So I was just going to say that I think it makes sense for us to potentially have a champion as an owner from the TSC that may, handle our involvement and engagement, but at the same time, it is its own initiative that is, I believe, spun out of the ComCom. So it may not make sense anymore for that to be on our strategic initiatives.
Okay. And then there's NSP and modules. And I don't even know what that is.
NSP is the node security project, and I'm assuming that probably has to do with stuff in the ecosystem. Oh, and you just reminded me of something that did happen at the board meeting that's worth bringing up.
Okay, oh wait, I'm gonna take minutes on this part. Okay, go ahead.
So one of the things that I did do for the board meeting was I presented an update on the IBB, the bug bounty program, that the Node Security Working Group is doing a proposal around. I don't know if everyone on the TSC is aware of it, but I can quickly run through that. I talked to Reed, he works for the IBB. They pay out bug bounties after a fix for core infrastructure has been landed regarding security and CVEs. The reports of these CVEs don't go through the IBB, they go through the normal process of the projects that maintain them. After the bug is fixed, the IBB assigns a bounty based on the severity, which they handle paying out. The IBB is run by a panel made up of companies who have donated to the IBB, and it's run on top of the HackerOne platform. From our perspective, what Node needs to do to participate is not really much. There's no expectation for money from the foundation to pay for vulnerabilities that are discovered in core. The IBB takes care of that. It's possible that we could incentivize this by adding money to the bounties. And so that was part of what I was presenting to the board, was just there isn't really any financial need from the foundation, but if it's a successful program, we can choose to invest more money into it. If we want to, we could have bounties for ecosystem modules, which is part of what we're talking about here with the NSP. The IBB will not support bounties for ecosystem modules. So that is something that we as a project and as a foundation can decide to do. There's no need on our end to sign anything as a foundation or even as a steering committee. Primarily, what this is about is they don't want to start running this program if we're not on board, especially if we don't have the resources to manage more security researchers hammering our platform. I think at this point, what probably makes a ton of sense is I will drop into the issue on the Node Security Working Group to ask them to send a final proposal to the TSC just so that we can reach consensus on that we're okay with this program running, and then we can kick it off. Does anyone have any like high-level questions based on what I've presented? I might be able to answer, but it also may make sense for us to just invite Reed, who's been driving this in the security working group, to present it to the TSC itself. I could maybe give you all a softball. If anyone has a suggestion for next steps that we could do to get kind of TSC sign off on this, that would likely be helpful for me.
So there was somebody posted something in the issue saying, you know, it would be good to get a little more TSC sign off, and I and one or two others said no. Excuse me, said no objections. You know, if the security working group is signing off on this, then that's good enough for me. I don't know if other, you know, but yeah.
So we have quorum in this meeting right now. Is it unreasonable to just do a call to the meeting for dissenters? And if no one dissents in the meeting, we can open an issue on the TSC tracker. If no one dissents in that in 48 hours, we can give the working group the heads up to move forward. Does anyone have a problem with that proposal?
I have no problem with that at all. I'm sorry, someone else? Yes?
Okay, so this is an official motion to open an issue on the TSC repo, and in 48 hours, if there's no dissenters, you will give the security working group opportunity to move forward with this. Great, thank you, everyone.
Does anyone have concerns or objections? Okay, and if so, you still have 48 hours to voice them. All right, great. I asked in the chat if the people who haven't had anything to say. Oh, wait. Colin's reporting that there's work for libv2 going on, but they're not rushing it. Nothing much to report other than that. Do you want to say anything about that, or did I just basically steal your thunder?
No, you basically just read what I wrote. So there's some stuff that we would like to see go into Node that would require libv2. Me and Santiago have talked about kind of pushing forward with it a little faster. Ben was kind of apprehensive about that and brought up a good point about how it would lead to a longer maintenance cycle for libv1. So not too it's not looking too great for it making it into Node 10, I guess is what I'm saying.
Node 11 is a possibility?
So Ben's idea was to shoot for Node 12, but I would like to see 11, I think. I think that's more reasonable.
Okay. Cool. And Sather Priyan is saying he has no updates. Gibson, do you have anything you wanted to talk about or announce or just tip people off to? Okay. If you're talking, you're on mute. Okay, so I guess now is the time, unless there's other issues to talk about. I think it's time for Q&A. See if we have anything in the Twitters or IRCs or YouTube comments. I don't know.
So I did solicit for questions in the YouTube chat, and we do have a few questions there.
All right.
So Tyranny asks, what's the probability that error messages will be landing in Node.js 10, even if it's prior to LTS but after release? I think the answer to that is that the error message changes have already been rolling out for some time and are just not completed. So I know some error messages are already converted to having like our Node.js error codes and have since probably Node 8 or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think Joyee is probably the person most connected with that who's on the call. But I think you're spot on.
I'm pretty sure I'm right about that, but
yeah, I think so.
I wanted to double check. And then Dan Shaw has some comments about mentorship. So apparently mentorship is supposed to be for both the ComCom and the TSC, but the ComCom's kind of focusing in that area right now, and they in the future, or at least if any one of us is willing, they'd love to have a TSC champion for it also. And then someone else asks, so who is the founder or founders of Node?
There's no founder.
Closest you get is Ryan Dahl, and that was a good few years ago, and he hasn't been around for a good few years. So,
yes. Last I heard, he was happily working on imaging or brain stuff or both or something like that at Google. But
so he's no longer at Google, but he's doing really cool stuff with machine learning.
Right on.
Huh.
Is that it for questions, Jeremiah?
That looks like it's it for questions there, yes.
Cool. All right. Thank you, questioner / commenters. There's a calendar of meetings like this one. It's at nodejs.org/calendar. I don't think all of the meetings that are in that calendar are streamed. Like I could be wrong about that. Like I know at the top of the hour, there's a moderation team meeting. I'm not sure if they stream it or not. They might. But you can check that calendar to see what sorts of other exciting, riveting, compelling meeting streams to listen to other than this one. And with that, I think we're pretty much done. Unless, oh wait, Gibson says, okay, he has nothing to report. Okay. So with that, I think, Myles, I think you can turn off the stream, and thanks everybody for tuning in.